guys, we are going to talk about in this episode about Lake Conroe. It was our first event of the year. What you need to take away from this episode is water levels, water clarity, and what happens and how that affects the fish. You know, at this event, you know, that lake had come up almost 2 feet within a month prior to us getting there, and a lot of rain, a lot of dirty water. But really the big thing is 2 feet. Like, that's really what changes things in a body of water, especially in the spring as fish start moving. So we're just gonna roll through the footage, kind of just go through what happened, what transpired. And on top of it, man, I catch a almost 8-pounder, like a 714, 715 on a spinnerbait. You guys gotta see that. It was an awesome, awesome fish catch. I made a great adjustment through this event. You know, so this is just all gonna be day one. Man, and I don't wanna indentate you guys with too many fish catches. I think I caught 19 bass that day, so we're gonna kind of fast forward through some of them. But I'm just gonna give you a rundown of what I thought, how I went through the day, and how it all transpired. So let's get the video started. So right here, guys, you notice I got a camera guy in the boat. I'm going underneath the bridge, and this canal in the back of it, I felt like with the water coming up 2 feet, I still felt like I could catch them. I went to the very back of this when I was down there a month, like before the off limits. I just, you want to go fishing. And if I want to go fishing, I might as well go look at the lake that our first tournament's on. And right here in this channel bend, me and a buddy, we caught them every cast for like 30 minutes. There was a school of fish there. And so I start here, and it was not good. I catch this keeper right here that I'm catching. I lost one other fish, but the reason why it was not good is everybody that chose to use their active target in that first period, and that's something new that we need to talk about, in the event. This fish I think weighed, I don't know, I don't remember if we had to have a 1.8 or 2 pounds. I don't remember what it was, but I'm gonna have my protein shake right here, and I'm gonna start my long idle out. And that's why I was so upset, because I went back there thinking I'd catch 7 to 10 bass in a very short amount of time, and I wouldn't lose this idle time coming out, because it's a long, long idle coming out. I'm gonna stop the video here and just talk to you a little bit about that decision. Why I think they were there a month prior, and why they weren't there when I came back in that event. I didn't go in there and practice. I spent my 2 days practicing everywhere else. I never found anything that was as confined as what I thought that was a month earlier. I think a lot of times in the spring, those fish, like those winter fish and those spring fish, like they're still there over that period of time. Why these fish weren't there is that water came up 2 feet. They scattered back out that canal. They were all up and down it. They might have gone on past it, because there's a real shallow spot you can't get across, and I think it gets deeper back in there. So it was a really bad decision. I was behind the 8 ball big time at this point. I was frustrated. I was big time frustrated. So getting the video back to going, here I am. I've made the run all the way up to Cany Creek, and Cany Creek is full of hydrilla. It's got tons of hydrilla in it. It's got the best water clarity. And man, there's fish in it. I get in there and I'm like, dadgummit, it's just going down. I'm running past people left and right, reeling them in, or people that had caught them. I still hadn't chose to use my active target. I felt like after practice, the best period for active target was in the evening. The sun was out, more fish came up shallow. I didn't have to let that minnow sink as far or get that jerkbait down as deep. I thought I could make it happen quicker using active target in the final period. And anytime you catch a fish in grass like that, guys, it's really important. Put a waypoint. And man, I start circling that area, and if we kind of fast forward through some of this footage, I ended up catching 2 or 3 right there. And I think the period break happens, and then man, I had to get back in that creek, because there's a spot where the channel kind of swinged up against some bigger timber. Nobody had been fishing it. Is where my next little spot was. This spot here was just a high spot, and other one here, I still hadn't made it back to that stretch where I really want to get to. I'm sitting there eyeballing this stretch on back in there. Nobody's hit it yet. It was another little spot that I felt like I found it when we were there a month earlier, some bigger timber, and I'm working my way back there, and we're getting closer, and then man, I start catching them pretty quick, just throwing lipless crankbait, and then I started throwing a spinnerbait, and man, it was fun. You guys just kind of watch some of this footage here. So the spinnerbait I was using here was just a tandem willow, chartreuse and white. It's actually the E2 special color. It's kind of a translucent chartreuse and white. The thing I love about that spinner that I'm using is it's got an extended hook. You don't need a trailer hook with it. And early spring fishing, I like that. Why wasn't I using a single Colorado? Because the water was too warm. You know, we had water in the mid 50s. I use that single Colorado when that water's in the low 50s, upper 40s, but I'm gonna be quiet and just, you can watch a few of these fish catches. It was a fun little time getting to throw that spinnerbait. It's just one of those things I love catching fish on. You know, watching this footage here, guys, it's just the perfect day. You can hear the wind noise, you know, it's a spinnerbait day. And then right here, I have the bite I'm looking for all day. It's a big one, a really big one. Man, she balled up in the grass, and that's one of the best things that can happen with a fish, you know, because their eyeballs are covered. They completely quit fighting. Sorry about the water on the lens.
£7, 15 ounces. Good job.
It makes me smile watching it again. Man, you talk about something that'll give you a bunch of confidence. You catch a 715, like I'm going through the roof now and just feeling really, really good. Moved way up the leaderboard. And you know, one thing to take from this, guys, in the spring, fish are non-stop moving. And I'm just going back and forth on this stretch, you know. And what makes it special, there's just grass lines and holes in the grass. You know, those fish are just roaming in those open areas, feeding on shad. You know, that's what I felt like made it special. There's a creek ditch down the middle. You know, kind of had some bends right there on that side. The other side of the creek was good too. There's people over there catching them, but you know, I had this spot to myself and I just kept going back and forth. So just don't forget about in the spring, fish are always coming to you. And it's one of the few times in the spring that you don't ever want to run from boats, because if somebody was to run in here, there's boats everywhere by this time of the day. Like, people are flooding in this creek, and you just keep fishing. Keep your head down, ignore them. Keep fishing. You know, it's just one of those rules in the spring on a lot of lakes in Texas, or grass lakes in general. You don't run from the boats. You notice it kind of calmed down there a little bit, and I started mixing in a swimming worm. You know, that spinnerbait, I felt like I could still catch some fish on it, but I'd been going back and forth on that stretch so much throughout that day that I wasn't catching them all. I knew some fish weren't gonna eat that spinnerbait, and when I started throwing that worm, I'm showing those fish something completely different, and just started throwing a swimming worm. And on this day, they eat it really good. Now, my day two, you guys aren't gonna see that footage in this one. They don't eat it too good, but yeah, it was a good adjustment, you know, in my tournament day, just to come in with a bait that's a little more subtle than a vibrating jig or a spinnerbait. You know, something like a swimming worm. It's just a bait that we talk about a lot on the channel. You gotta have tied on.
£1, 13 ounces. pounds, 4 ounces. Hot to foam. Catch fish. Fish landed violation there, buddy.
You know, one thing about those fish out there, you know, that those minnow fish, those fish that were floating out over that creek, that's the same fish that was ending up in the back of that creek, you know, but they were quality fish. They seemed to be bigger. They averaged a little bigger. They were 2 to 4 pound fish for the most part, and really, really, really fat. The mistake I made though, looking back, and it's really on my day 2. You know, this day it was okay, but it was, you know, day 2 it got so windy and it was calm in the morning. Anytime you're out there trying to catch those minnow fish or those jerkbait fish, boat positioning is everything. And the calmer it is, the easier it is, because your boat's gonna be stationary. You know, you're gonna be able to hit your target. If the wind's blowing you sideways and you're trying to hit it as you're moving by, you know, it can be a lot more of a challenge to do it, and especially when you're under a time constraint. You know, if I was to take one thing, a mistake I make with my minnow fishing a lot of times, I set the hook too quick. I see a fish come to it and I'm setting the hook almost before they get there. And there's a few times this day that, you know, I nicked fish or I took it away from them. I've got to learn to be a little bit more patient, let them eat it, you know, almost take my eyes off my Lowrance and fish the bait like you normally would to let them eat it. So there it is, guys. That was my day 1, Lake Conroe. Ended up in 13th place, so I was really, really happy with my day. It's a great way to get the year started. I'm feeling really confident. Just need to have a good backup day the next day. We'll get into that in another video down the line. It'll be a good video for you guys to watch too, because I make some mistakes, like big time mistakes. You know, when you're under pressure and you're trying to put as many fish on the score tracker, mistakes mount up, and that's kind of what happens to me in that second day. So you guys will have to check that video when it comes out. But I appreciate you following, appreciate all the support, guys, and good luck. Right now is the best time to be out there fishing.